Good morning, everybody. It's me, Michael. It's my Saturday soundtrack on Sheffield Hospital Radio. Hope you've had a great week. And my guest this morning is Mahmud. Welcome, Mahmud.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, everyone.
And Mahmud, you're the chair at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals.
I am indeed.
And brilliant. So you're here with us throughout the show today. So we're going to find out all about you, your role, and particularly some of the things that you're passionate about, particularly organ transplantation. So thank you for joining me today. I think you've travelled quite a way to come down to us.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I've come from Wakefield this morning.
So I really appreciate it. Really, thank you for spending some time. And I'm sure our listeners will really want to kind of hear so much about you and the things that you do. So just start, because some people might be thinking, gosh, what's the chair of a trust? What role is that? So give us a bit of an introduction to what the role is and how long you've been doing it.
When I understand it, I'll let you know. I've been a chair in the NHS since the beginning of 2024, so not terribly long. And I started at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals on the 1st of October 2025. Broadly, I always break it down into three jobs. So, the chair's job essentially is to chair the board of the organisation, and the chief executive officer runs the organisation, but the chair chairs the board, has an ambassadorial role as well. And I think the board really has three jobs: holding the executive directors to account for doing the things that we've all agreed to be done. So assurance, and then a bit of co-creation of strategy and culture for the organisation as well, and ensuring good governance for the organisation. That's broadly what I'll be responsible for as chair of the organisation.
That's great. And can I ask then, who appoints the chair? How do you get the job? Is it a paid job?
It is a paid job. So it depends on what kind of trust you are. So here at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, we're a foundation trust, which means we have a council of governors, and that's comprised of lay people who act as patient or public governors, partner governors from organisations like Sheffield College, for example, as well as staff governors too. And the council of governors have the responsibility for appointing the chair of a foundation trust. So technically speaking, they are who appoints me, and they are my boss within the organisation. If you're not a foundation trust, then it tends to be NHS England alongside the trust itself that will make that appointment.
Okay. And is it a permanent role? Is it for a particular term?
It's the term. So I've been appointed for a 4-year term. Okay. There's still a question mark about if I'm appointed for a second term, how long will that be? But typically in the NHS, it's about 6 years is your maximum term as a chair. I'm hoping it might be a little bit longer here because it ought to have been a 2 times 4 year term, but there's still some discussions to be had with NHS England around aligning everyone to that 6-year period. And there's some reason for that, because if you're holding people to account and you're inserting scrutiny and challenge, you don't want to do that for too long, because you want those fresh ideas, you want that fresh challenge, taking the organisation to the next level. Having a set period of time to do that is a really healthy way of achieving that, avoiding that capture, if you like, by the organisation, and ensuring you get new talent coming through.
Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting, and really interesting to hear that you started back in October, and we'll find out a bit later. I think you've managed to get round quite a high majority. If anyone's seen your social media of our community and acute teams and met those, so I'd love to hear about some of your stories from across there, if that's okay. And then particularly what you were saying about the strategy as well. I'm sure we'll get into some of the what's your vision for STH going forwards. So thanks, Mahmud. That's really great. Now, the first song, I asked you to pick a song for us today, and you've picked Dire Straits. Any reasons why?
Yeah, not great street cred, I guess, in terms of my first choice. But when I started university a long time ago, I did that weird thing that many people do, and I found a music shop and bought myself an instrument. And that instrument was a red electric guitar, a Fender Squier Strat, which
Wow.
I've still got, believe it or not, rusting away in my garage somewhere. I kind of, the first time I saw Mark Knopfler, the lead guitarist of Dire Straits, play, and he's quite a melodic guitar player. I just got captured, transfixed straight away. So that's always become my my favourite band and my favourite track of ever. So yeah, that's why.
Dire Straits and Sultans of Swing there, picked by Mahmud, our chair, who links to his first guitar. Can you play that song, Mahmud?
So I used to be able to play that incredibly badly, and I hadn't touched my guitar for many a year, so probably the right answer is no. But I used to have a tinkle on that. Yeah.
Really? Maybe we need a live session. I'll give you 6 months' notice.
That's a flat no.
Tell us a bit about what did you do beforehand? What are the kind of experiences and skills in your career that then led? We'll talk a bit later about what led you to becoming a chair, but pre-NHS life.
Yeah, so I did economics at university. I graduated in 1991, which was the middle of the recession.
Right.
So I ended up getting a job offer at KPMG to become an accountant and an auditor, but deferred for a year because they weren't taking people on in the middle of the recession. So I ended up getting a temporary job in the House of Commons research division of the library, which I loved so much for 6 months. I ended up staying for 4 years and giving up the KPMG position. So working with MPs of all parties, politically neutral, between 1991 and 95. I loved it really, but I knew I had to get out before I stayed there for life. Yeah. So I joined an economic consulting firm, so it's management consulting, but using economics, between 1995 and 2000, and then for personal reasons ended up moving up to Yorkshire with my first wife, and worked for myself for a year, and great year financially, but very lumpy in terms of when the paycheck's coming in, when you're paying a mortgage. Thought I'd better get a proper job up in Leeds. Back then it was either Asda or Halifax Bank of Scotland. So I joined the bank, and I've spent 23 years, left in June of last year with Lloyds Banking Group. And then I started my NHS roles in 2020, so in the middle of COVID. Yeah. First with Mid Yorkshire Teaching Trust, then with Chesterfield Royal as chair and Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, and I've dabbled with school governor roles. I've chaired Relate, the counselling charity in Bradford and Leeds as well, for a time too. So yeah, I've done a few different things across public sector, private sector, and the third sector. Yeah.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Mahmud. And just kind of banking. Kind of talk us through what do you think are the key similarities and differences in terms of a leadership role there and the leadership role you've got now as chair?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, there are a lot of similarities. So I was in retail banking, so and my background was customer experience. That's what I led in the bank, and translating that to patient experience is a very easy thing to do. But done in a very different way between the private sector and the NHS. And I think both are very large, complex organisations. Both are very heavily regulated organisations. And I think there are some common things around navigating a large organisation. How do you focus on the patient or the customer throughout that? How do you keep the organisation safe, given the high levels of regulation you've got? I think these are all quite common, and in a large people organisation as well. Things like performance management, talent management, these are quite common things as well, that are very translatable from one organisation to another, but done very differently.
Yeah, I can imagine. Different but similar with the, as you say, some of those drivers. And then House of Commons, someone who's only ever kind of had the photo taken with the backdrop of Big Ben, kind of, that's fascinating to think what's on the inside and what's it like working in there. What are your kind of key memories from that, or highlights or low points?
I loved it. I was an officer of the House at age 21. That meant I had the same security privilege as a member of Parliament. Right. And so I could go into the chamber. That's part of your induction. You get brought into the chamber for Prime Minister's questions. You don't get to sit down, but you do get to stand either behind the Speaker's chair or at the main entrance to the Commons. I remember once I brought one of my university friends who was still at university for a visit in the summer recess, and I brought her to the main chamber of the House of Commons, and the big doors were shut, and the security officer came and descended on me because I was young, had a look at, he said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, sir, the doors are shut, it's a summer recess." He took one look at my pass and said, "But for you, sir, I'll open it up." And my university friend's jaw just dropped, and they let us go into the chamber, closed the doors behind us. So we just were in the chamber, sitting on the green chairs and the Speaker's chair, and it was incredible. So I had a lovely time. It was neutral, but effectively the main customer was the opposition front bench.
Okay.
So, and at that time, it was a Conservative government, John Major, and it was the birth of New Labour with Tony Blair becoming the leader, and Gordon Brown. I used to do a lot of stuff with Tony Blair, with Gordon Brown. I used to catch the bus home with Jack Straw.
Gosh,
This is all before they became the government, and it was a real insight into who is leading our country and how we are very good at getting people elected.
Yeah.
That's the talent.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the very best brains to run the country, really. And I think what you see on the news or on TV is the polished version. And I got to see the before they're informed version of many people as well, which is different, obviously. And but I really loved it. You felt like you're making a bit of a difference, and you felt like in the heat of the battle as well. I actually worked in the main library, so right next to the Commons itself, for the night of the Maastricht debate on the EU.
Yeah.
And that will always stay with me, just in terms of how terse that was and how every vote counted, and seeing the whips in action in the library, coercing people to vote in the right way. It was just really fascinating insight into how those tight decisions are really made.
Yeah. And anything finally kind of, again, you described the kind of some of the similarities and differences from banking. I presume politically, with a small p and a big P, anything from your time in the Commons that you draw on now in your role?
It is fascinating when you're in the Commons and you're doing the kind of research type role for MPs, not in a politically biased way, in a matter of fact way, in a neutral way. How MPs of different parties will then take what you've written and try and twist that to spin. And it really teaches you how to say and write things in a way where you're conscious of that. My first experience of that in the House of Commons was there was some work that an MP had asked me to just look at, which was, I remember it was kind of like 1991, 1992, we had the Iraq War as well, and the petrol, the price of crude oil had shot up, and so had the price of petrol.
Yep.
And then the price of crude oil had shot down, but the price of petrol had remained the same. And so that was the graph that was asked for, and a description, as I've just given you, of what had happened. And that ended up from the MP in the Sun newspaper, I think, as with a headline of Shell in oil price rip-off shock.
Gosh.
Damning dossier from the House of Commons library. And it teaches you a lesson. Not that I'd said or did anything wrong, but how do you start thinking about what's the worst that someone can do with this?
Yeah.
And then how might you mitigate that in what you say before you give it to them as well. Did get an interesting invite from Shell to come on a little visit to be lobbied, which I politely said no. But yeah, it was a really, really interesting time just to see the power of the word and the power of misusing the word. And often in the chamber of the House, I've got data from the House of Commons library that says this on one side, and then on the opposition side, and I've got data from the House of Commons library that says this. So the same stuff can be used against each other as well. So it just makes you think about that spectrum rather than just everything is one fact.
And the subjectivity and I presume bias in the broadest sense of the word.
Exactly.
Gosh, Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay. I think there's other things that have kind of shaped your journey to becoming a chair of the hospital, Mahmud, and I know you're very passionate about organ transplantation. Will you share with us some of your journey and experiences around that?
Of course. Thanks, Michael. So yeah, in 2004, I just, with my wife Sharon, moved back, well, for her back to Yorkshire, for me up to Yorkshire as a Londoner. We'd been married just 18 months before, and it was a normal Monday morning. She got up first to get in the shower, and I heard a bit of a thud, and I found her collapsed in the bath, and I thought she'd fainted, and rang 999. You can tell it was a while ago. 8 minutes for the ambulance to arrive. They tried to revive her, couldn't, and then off we went to Bradford Royal Infirmary to A&E, and there for quite a while. Then they came out, and the sister in A&E sort of sat me down and said, "I don't think there's anything we can do," and they introduced me to the specialist nurse for organ donation, who had a conversation with me about would I consent to organ donation. Now, she'd carried a card since the age of 16, and we'd had the "what's that in your purse" conversation, and so we actually spoke about her wish to be a donor, and I'm really glad she protected me from having to make that decision, because I probably would have said no, and because she said yes, or I said yes because she told me to, that's what she wanted. She went to ICU to warm the body up. She took one breath unaided that afternoon, so sort of praying to God, hoping for a miracle, but in hindsight it was she wasn't. She hadn't met the criteria for the brainstem test yet, so they did that the next day and confirmed that she was in fact dead. And at the end of so Monday morning she went in. The end of Tuesday I left. Took 4 goes, and the staff in ICU were just absolutely incredible. Came back the next morning. That overnight they had the transplant, the retrieval of the organs and the transplantation to the recipients, and she ended up saving 4 lives. I found out the next morning, including a little boy of 1.5 who wouldn't have made it to 2 without the smaller part of her liver. And I'm incredibly proud of her for wanting that for herself and wanting that for other people. She was O negative as well for blood types, so she gave blood regularly. She cared about others, and she would have been really proud that only 1% of people die in a way where organ donation is possible. And because she'd prepared me and I said yes, 4 people had the chance of life. Now, that little boy, I met him and his family in May of last year. Yeah. In May 25, in the Botanical Gardens in Sheffield, of all places. And his family were telling me they were preparing his funeral, age 1.5, preparing his funeral, and then this miracle came along, and it makes you full of pride, and what an amazing legacy. So that connected me with 2 things happened. It connected me with organ donation to create awareness, share my story of lived experience, to encourage others to make an informed decision about organ donation, yes or no, to tell their loved ones, because they're the ones that make the decision ultimately. So if you say yes and your loved one says no, it's still a no. So prepare your loved ones, protect them from having to make it, and to record your decision on the organ donor register, which you can do on the website organdonation.nhs.uk, or on the NHS app now as well. Okay. So on your profile bit on the top right of the NHS app allows you to check and change and record your organ donation decision. But yeah, so I've been an organ donation ambassador ever since, and that sort of created my pathway as onto the organ donation committees for 2 trusts in Leeds and Mid Yorkshire, and then ultimately as a non-exec director at Mid Yorkshire, and then ultimately as chair. But the other thing it did is it gave me a glimpse of what true compassionate care looked like in a hospital. Never believed as a private sector person that is what you could do in a hospital, and it blew my mind. It really did. And I went back at the end of the week to say thank you to people. That sister in A&E, she had she put her arm around me and said it would be okay, and that meant an awful lot. She had lost her husband waiting for a kidney transplant. but there she was looking after me and encouraging me or supporting me to say yes to save other people without a flicker of emotion for herself that I could see. That was incredible. And in ICU, they made me go eat some food at some point, came back to find one of the nurses just combing her hair. And those little moments have stayed with me ever since. So it's an utter privilege to be involved in an NHS trust where you see that everyday moments of compassionate care on the front line. And we all take it for granted. I don't. You know, it 22 years on, it still stays with me. It's just a very, very special moment.
Thank you for sharing that, Mahmud. It was incredibly moving to hear it, and you talked so passionately about it, and just the kind of both sides of that experience of the absolute sadness, but the joy as you've described around it. So thank you, and I know this next song is one that you've chosen as well. So Lewis Capaldi, Someone to Love. Thank you. Welcome back. I'm here with Mahmud, the chair of Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, who was telling us very passionately about his passion for transplantation. But you're also supporting the British Transplant Games this year, Mahmud. Tell us a bit about how you got involved with that and what that involves, particularly for Sheffield.
Yeah, so we're very privileged here in Sheffield to be hosting the British Transplant Games in August of this year. So from Thursday the 6th of August to Sunday the 9th of August, the annual British Transplant Games is coming to town. So that has about 2,500 people taking part. About 1,200 of them are transplanted athletes and they compete for the hospital essentially where they've had the transplant. So here in Sheffield, we will have a Sheffield adults team who we have provided kidney transplants primarily to from our own trust. And I'm really pleased to say it's looking very likely now, working with the Sheffield Children's Hospital, that we'll have for the first time ever a Sheffield children's team competing in the 150th year of Sheffield Children's Hospital as well at the British Transplant Games. So there's some amazing events going on. There'll be an opening ceremony into the town hall on the Thursday. The swimming will be at Ponds Forge on the Saturday usually. Athletics, track and field will be at the Olympic Legacy Park on the Sunday. There'll be a cycling event. There's events for children. And on the Saturday evening, there's a donor run, which for me is a walk, but it's a 2.5 or 5K in memory or in celebration of the gift of life, which brings together the transplanted community, people that have had a transplant from age 2 to age 80 compete. The donor families like myself who go there and award the medals, people involved in transplantation from an NHS perspective, and all their supporters and families as well. It's an incredible celebration of gift of life. Very emotional, well worth coming to visit. For Sheffield, I'm on the board for helping arrange this in Sheffield. We're really looking forward to this being the most inclusive and the biggest games we've ever had. From an ethnicity perspective, and Sheffield being a very diverse city, 25% ethnic minority, over a third of the people on the transplant waiting list are ethnic minority, but we only get 7% of athletes. And the idea is activity after transplantation. So we're definitely trying to get a more inclusive participation in the games, visiting the games as well, and getting people from all communities having that conversation about organ donation. If you look like me, if you're Asian or if you're black, you're twice as likely to need a transplant, half as likely to say yes to deceased donation. So you wait longer and you die, or a greater risk of dying. So we need to do more to create the conversations in all of our communities. And across the country as a whole, 3 people die every day waiting for a transplant. That power of the conversation to save lives, like I did with my wife, is so powerful. So that's the real call out. Have the conversation, get involved with the games, celebrate a national event coming to Sheffield in August.
Yeah, that feels like a wonderful opportunity to bring it so close to Sheffield for people to get involved. So how can people get involved? Is it watching? Is it volunteering? Is it kind of being part of the fringe event?
All of the above. So BritishTransplantGames.co.uk is a good hub to see everything, but you can go there to register to be a volunteer. You can go there if you've had a transplant to find out about your local team that you can get in touch with. There's the details of all the team managers to go and speak to them to say, how can I get involved with my local team? Come and watch. There's details of when the events are on that website, and participate. And you can get involved with the donor run or the donor walk by registering for that for the Saturday evening. And it is an incredible event.
It sounds like, and does Sheffield usually do quite well with the medals? Not that I'm competitive, but...
So one of the lovely things for me as chair designate, so I'd been appointed but I hadn't started yet in August 25 in the Oxford British Transplant Games, was because I usually do the swimming medals. So I actually met Rachel and Thomas, who are two of the Sheffield adults swimmers, and they got 3 gold medals between them.
Excellent.
So we're not a massive team. We're hoping to work on that by getting a stronger team out for the Sheffield Games. But we definitely punched above our weight as a smallish team going to the games, and that was such a highlight for me to be able to meet them and award those medals myself.
Brilliant. Great. Thanks, Mahmud. So, yeah, big shout out to all the athletes, and really great to hear all about it. Thank you.
Playing all your favorites, 24 hours a day, Sheffield Hospital Radio.
Welcome back. It's me, Michael. It's my Saturday soundtrack on Sheffield Hospitals Radio. If you're listening to us across our 5 hospital sites or out in the community, thank you ever so much for tuning in. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend. I'm joined in my second hour by Mahmud, who was with us talking early in the first hour about his role as chair of Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, his passion for organ transplantation and the exciting organ transplantation games that are coming. Remind me, Mahmud, when in August do they come to Sheffield?
It's August the 6th to the 9th across various venues across Sheffield.
Fantastic. And so, Mahmud, just tell us a bit. Obviously, you said you started at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals in October. We are a massive organisation, the 5 hospital sites. We're out and about across Sheffield with our community services and across South Yorkshire. How have you gone about finding out about Sheffield Teaching Hospitals? Where have you been? What you've seen? What have you learned?
So it started before I started, to be honest with you. So I'd had a few site visits around the Hallamshire site, the Northern General Hospital site, and indeed with our community services before day one. And I'd done my due diligence before the application process as well, of course. But yeah, since I've started, I've been on a bit more of a formal induction process. And one of the things I do like to do as chair is get myself out and about anyway. So that's kind of blended quite nicely. So I've been to a fair few places, as you've seen, which is great. And I've shared my journeys and meeting amazing colleagues. And, hopefully for those that listened a little bit earlier, I genuinely am in awe of what great care we deliver on the front line. So it's always such a privilege to go out and about and meet people delivering that day in, day out, really. So this week I've been to the renal team, which is particularly special for me because that's where we do both the dialysis treatment, but also our transplantation treatment within STH to meet the team and have a walk around. I've been to the Northern General Eye Centre to meet the amazing team there on a board out and about visit with Jane, our Chief Medical Officer as well. I've been to, I think, about a quarter maybe of the various, there are 27 directorates that we have in the trust, and for each of those I'm trying to spend time with the clinical director, nursing director and operations director, and then have a bit of a floor walk as well. I am definitely dialing up community services a bit more. We have 40 community sites. A third of our 2 million patient contacts a year are in our community settings or in patients' homes, not actually in the hospital. So it's a really big chunk of the work that we do as a trust, and will inevitably grow as we deliver the hospital to community shift that all of the NHS is aspiring to do as well. But everywhere I've been, I've just seen really great care. I think the quality of care is exceptional in this trust. It's not without its challenges, as you well know, but I think we're really blessed having a fantastic team in the trust, all of whom want to do the very best for our patients.
And tell me, because I think you're absolutely right. We were talking before Christmas about I'd learnt the fact that we have more, we see more patients in their own home every day with a district nurse than we do in our A&E department, and we know how busy our A&E departments can be. So tell us a bit more about what were the services that you went out and about. How was it going and delivering that care across the kind of the breadth of Sheffield?
Yeah, so I've done a day with the team at Firth Park, and I've done a day with the team at Lightwood House. So whilst I'm probably spending 2-3 hours with each of our directorates, I probably have spent best part of 3 days, I would say, even maybe a bit more, across our various community services teams to really understand the breadth, because there's, as you say, there's so much involved in our community services. And I've done some patient visits myself. So I've been to a care home, and I've been on 3 visits to a patient in their own home as well. So, and I've seen it's an incredible skill to go into someone's home, make them feel at ease, and deliver care in someone else's setting. It's an incredible skill, and I'm very much in awe of the ability to do that and to do some things like physiotherapy with a patient in their living room, and how you use your techniques to put them at ease and get the right kind of physical activity and therapy happening in the right way. It's amazing to see. But yeah, the district nursing team, the physio team that we've got, there are so many different services that we're offering to people, and the role of community services to help people stay out of hospital in the first place and to get them out of hospital if they've been in there quicker, I think is so powerful, and something that we need to do more of in this trust.
Fantastic. I actually was a relative of a patient receiving care in Firth Park earlier this week. So my daughter had podiatric surgery up there, and absolutely fantastic service, in and out within an hour. Fascinating talking to the podiatrist who put my daughter at fantastic ease and did quite, significant treatment and surgery on her and sent us off, and fantastic work. I was really impressed with the follow-up. So we don't need to come back for a follow-up. We just need to send a photo in and they'll review it. I think innovation like that is fantastic. And then just finally, I saw on your social media, I don't know if it was this week or a couple of weeks ago, you were also in the catering department. So some of the work that the non-clinical staff do, where have you been to visit those teams?
So you're right. I was in the central production unit at the Northern General, which makes from scratch 35,000 meals a week for all our patients and staff across our trust. It's an incredible operation, award-winning operation as well. So it was amazing to see the whole end-to-end process that's involved there. And across all of our trust, we've got those 27 directorates, and then we've got a whole bunch of corporate services. So I've spent time with each of the exec directors, you included, and to meet the teams and. That's beyond the clinical stuff, as you rightly say. There are 350 roles in the NHS, and we need every one of those to create the jigsaw puzzle that makes a trust successful. And it's really important that we recognise that, and it's really important that we go out and see all those components, because we're only as good as our weakest bit of the jigsaw, really.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mahmud. And for all those staff listening in today, thank you. We know how tough it can be sometimes at a weekend, and we spoke last week some of the challenges that we'd had across the organisation with the snow and ice, and how fantastic all those staff, clinical and non-clinical, had been to get on site, but get out into those patients' homes, down those side streets, up those hills across Sheffield. So thanks, Mahmud. We've got a song now, a request, I think. Are you, who's the song from, and what is it?
Yeah, so this is my debut as a DJ. So this is a request from Sharon for all her family, and the track is Gladys Knight, Way We Were.
Hey, everybody's talking about the good old days, right? Everybody, the good old days, the good old days.
Welcome back. I'm with Mahmud, our chair, and hearing there about some of the amazing teams and staff that you've met across the organisation. You mentioned when you talked about the role of the chair and very much around setting the strategic direction and forward view. So we've heard about you obviously spend a lot of time going out, experiencing hearing about our teams and services. Where do you think STH will be in 5 years, 10 years' time? What do you think the vision for the organisation is?
Yeah, so first thing, it's not just up to me. So this will be a discussion for the board as a whole to work through. But from a personal perspective, I think I've seen incredibly good quality of care. I think we've got all the basics right. Maybe what we need to do is go on a journey from good to great, maybe is the best way to phrase it. And what do I mean by that? I think there are some strategic shifts within there. So the hospital care to community care, or care based in the community or in home, I think is a good shift that I know we're collectively all committed to. I think a stronger role for digital, not just in our trust, but across South Yorkshire is a good shift that we will be part of or leading. Importantly for me, how do we think about prevention and how do we think about tackling and reducing health inequalities as well? I'm really struck that in Sheffield, within a 4-mile distance, you go from a healthy life expectancy in the most deprived areas to the most affluent areas of growing by 20 years. A 20-year gap in 4 miles is an incredibly small area to drive that. And I really want to see Sheffield Teaching Hospitals grow in ambition and belief over the next 5 years and be proud of what we're doing on a national scale, and play much stronger into our South Yorkshire and even beyond. Our community isn't just Sheffield; it's much more beyond. How do we play into that? How do we support our partners? Work with primary care, social care, voluntary sector, become a much stronger powerhouse for our communities in partnership with others. I think these are the sorts of shifts I hope we'll be making over the next 5 years.
And that's really interesting, and that balance, because as I understood it, kind of in terms of the hospital and community services, as you say, we've got the district nurse going into the patient's home and doing some really fantastic preventative work there, through to the A&E and the role of us as a DGH, through to as I understand it, some of the national services that we've got, pulmonary function, PVDU, and spinal injuries and rehabilitation. And then I've talked a lot and kind of gone through the STH news here on the show. Some of the research that we do is absolutely kind of groundbreaking, national and internationally recognised. So how do you think we balance that? How will you balance that as an organisation for our patients, for our staff, for our relationships?
Yeah, so in summary, I think we need to be doing all of that, okay. and we are, but we're not necessarily, I think, telling our story in the most powerful way that we can. So I've been to visit the Gamma Knife and the team there, and like you say, that's national, indeed internationally recognised as well, and we're doing some incredibly strong work there. Same with many of our research opportunities, as you say. So we need to create a narrative that talks about our services for our local people, the District General Hospital services, as you say, through to those national and international centres of excellence on research and certain services, and what is our potential role for helping beyond our immediate patch as we all start doing more in partnership with others. And that doesn't mean we have to lead everything. We could be led as well. But I think there's a real opportunity for us to think about how do we scale a little bit, and then how do we tell our story? How do we make our colleagues feel proud of working for Sheffield Teaching Hospitals? And indeed, how do we empower our colleagues so what's next? What the best ideas won't come from our boardroom. They'll come from our colleagues involved in looking after patients day in, day out.
Mahmud, I was reading your CV and kind of your background, so I'm going to embarrass you now as I kind of run through some of the accolades that you've received. So you were recognised at the end of 2023 by your peers as one of the 75 national ethnic minority health leaders by both the CCOL group, which is a Black Asian minority ethnic NHS non-executive directors group, and the South Asian NHS Leaders Network. And in September 2024, you were named as one of Europe's top 50 influential Muslims in Europe by Equality X. And more recently, in October 25, you were named as one of the 14 rising stars in the Health Service Journal, so the kind of NHS healthcare trade magazine, trade paper, on the top 50 Black, Asian, minority, ethnic healthcare leaders list. So that's fantastic. So how did you get those awards and recognitions, and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, so it's always nice to be recognised by your peers. It's always very meaningful, but it's a team sport, isn't it? So you're only successful because of the team that you're working with and the ability to celebrate the strength of what you are involved with in the various trusts that I have been over the last few years. And it's great to have those bits of recognition. It really is. I mean, being appointed chair of Sheffield Teaching Hospitals in its own right is a great bit of recognition as well. And in fact, we have in the NHS a group of 10 trusts called the Sheffield Group, who are the largest 10 research and teaching hospitals in the country. And Sheffield Teaching Hospitals is very proudly one of those. And I am, in fact, the first person of colour to chair a Sheffield Group trust ever. And it does feel like a real glass ceiling moment as well. I know it won't be the last. There's so much talent out there, but it is really important with these awards and breaking these glass ceilings to allow people in the NHS. I mean, 25-30% of the NHS workforce is from an ethnic minority background, and they need to see people in leadership positions that look like them. It's really important, and driving a more inclusive culture, we know, saves lives. There is a clear link to better decision making and higher quality of care by having a real focus on inclusion within a trust. And I think I can bring something to that. It's something that means a lot to me. What I believe in is every single individual in our trust needs to feel that they belong in that trust. And that isn't about colour of your skin. It's not just about the colour of your skin. It's about whoever you are. Whether you are an admin and clerical colleague, whether you are a porter, whether you are a domestic, everyone needs to feel that they belong in our trust. Every single one of our 20,000 staff needs to feel they belong. And then you start to create a culture where we can push each other, we can call out bad behaviour and self-police it, and we can make the environment better for not just our staff but our patients, and improve the quality of care as well.
And just build on that, Mahmud. So inclusion and diversity are often hot topics. We see it in the news for all the good reasons and often for very strong all the wrong reasons. Just expand on that kind of, how do you think that helps provide better healthcare, drive better outcomes, better experiences for patients? Where do you see the links, and how do you want to support that?
Yeah, so, and again, it isn't just about race, it's about all protected characteristics, and it's about creating an environment where you can be yourself and bring your whole self to work. And there have been so many academic studies done which prove that if you are in any way not able to do that, if you are curtailed, if you're bullied, if you're harassed at work, whether that's because of the colour of your skin or for whatever reason, you end up with worse decision making at the point of care. And why would we do that? The cost of sickness in the NHS as a result of bullying, harassment, racism, homophobia, misogyny, whatever it is huge. And in a world where financially we're all struggling a little bit to deliver the kind of care that we want to deliver, tackling and removing that as a cost to us has got to be the right thing to do. So it's better for patients, it's better for the organisation. Diverse boards and diverse decision making is always better as well. It's a no-brainer. An absolute no-brainer. It's not a moral mission. It's not just a moral mission, it's an economic mission, it's a quality mission as well for the organisation. So yeah, that's why it matters.
And it feels like when you're out and about around Sheffield teaching hospitals, I think of the times when I am, you can see staff wearing the rainbow badges. I'm very proud to see that, some of the artwork and messages that are around and about. So there is that feel. Have you got that sense of inclusion around the place? Where would you like STH to go further and to build on that?
Yeah, so it's absolutely, and one of the reasons I wanted to come, because I could see that. I could see that this was a trust where this mattered. You know, a quarter of our workforce and a quarter of the population of Sheffield, so 25%, are from an ethnic minority background. So we are representative of the communities that we serve. But we know there are pockets where this isn't great, and we have to tackle that. And I have full confidence that where colleagues step over the line, there will be consequences for that, and we have to do that because bullying, harassment, that's not on. That's for anyone. That's not on at all. I think where we can go next is around less of the reactive, which I think is really good in this trust, but maybe some of the more proactive. So how do we create a truly inclusive culture? How do we create a truly inclusive recruitment policy and practice, and how do we be actively anti-racist, anti-bullying? These aren't spectator sports, these are participation sports. We all of us, all 20,000 of us, need to play a role in making the culture more inclusive. So I use this as a good example. If you join if you look like me and you join a team and you're tolerated, that is not what I mean by belonging. If you join a team and everyone in that team makes you feel that you belong there, that's belonging. And so it takes us all to do this and give everybody the full opportunity to be what they can be.
That's brilliant. Really great to hear you kind of describe that. So, Mahmud, we mentioned earlier just kind of some of the different organisations that we work with across Sheffield, and we know that Sheffield Hospital Radios is celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2026, but I think some of our institutions and organisations across STH are having, across Sheffield, and South Yorkshire, are having similar anniversaries.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful we might be able to do a little bit of cross collaboration across Sheffield to celebrate this a little bit more together. But 2026, not just the transplant games coming to Sheffield, but it's 150 years of Sheffield Children's Hospital. It's 25 years of us as a trust. Sheffield Teaching Hospitals is 25 years old as a group. We'll be soon coming up to 150 years of the Northern General Hospital. We'll soon be coming up to 200 years of the first medical school in Sheffield, a University of Sheffield celebration, but obviously we'll be very connected with that, with our partnership work there as well. 75 years of Charles Clifford Dental Hospital is coming up, and I think it will be 50 years of the Royal Hallamshire Hospital Tower as well coming up soon. So these are all things that will be between 2026 and 2028. So we've got quite a lot of anniversaries to look forward to.
Yeah, and how do you think we should celebrate those? And do you think there's any coincidence they're all kind of landmark figures, or is it just the way it's gone, or anything about how and when people think to set up establishments like that?
Yeah, I suspect it shows that how connected we are, doesn't it? That whilst we strive for stronger partnership working, this has always been the case because all these things are clustered together. And I think it's such a great opportunity as anchor institutions within Sheffield, whether that's Sheffield Teaching Hospital, Sheffield Children's Hospital, the University of Sheffield, also talking to Sheffield Hallam University around please find something as well in that Sheffield plus health combination to see how we can celebrate together. And I think that's really important. You know, we all serve the same population. So we're not in competition. And there's something really powerful about celebrating not just partnership work today, partnership work over centuries that we've been doing together.
Because I imagine when you start to list out there some of those organisations, the council, the universities, Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, Sheffield Children's Trust, that must be a huge proportion of the working population. As you say, kind of as a population, we probably all link into some of those organisations on a monthly, weekly or maybe daily basis out there. So the impact that must have on Sheffield and some of the opportunities for employment, I presume, through all of that, some great opportunities there.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing. We are healthcare providers, absolutely, but we are also large employers, and we make a big contribution to the economy of Sheffield and South Yorkshire, and that's an important part of our role to recognise. And increasingly working with Sheffield City Council, the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, Oliver Coppard as mayor, around health and the economy and health and wealth for our populations. Our role in keeping people in work rather than going off sick, from an employment perspective for UK PLC and the cost of sickness. I think these are all themes that will recognise that anchor institution role that we play, but we play it alongside others, as you say, and recognising that, celebrating together is an important part of how we can make a difference.
And just linking the conversations we've had today with what you were saying about, was it 360 roles across professions, was that, or roles across STH, and the team that you went down and visited in the catering unit, there's clearly the clinical roles that everyone would recognise within hospital and community services, but those estates and catering and admin and clerical, leadership, portering, support roles, there are some fantastic opportunities, I presume, for college leavers, school leavers, university leavers, people like yourself moving into the region and things like that in all manner of professions across the organisation.
Completely, and with one of the schools team, I'm going along in a couple of weeks to do a talk at Sheffield High School for Girls on organ donation and blood donation with my ambassador hat on for NHS Blood and Transplant, but we'll also talk a little bit about that careers pathway for exactly this point. But even some of the newer roles that young people are particularly excited by, digital, AI, IT, I think data science, I think these are things that you can do in an NHS trust, and we need people to come in and do more in that space as well. And as you rightly say, thinking about a hospital or community services that we are, less about doctors and nurses, and recognising the third largest workforce are allied health professionals. So you could be a therapist, you could be an ODP working in our theatres. There are so many different roles that you can do, whether they're clinical or non-clinical. And that all makes up our team. So you can basically do anything within our trust, and that's the power of a large organisation.
And I presume from what you were saying earlier, then that diversity of those people, of background, of ethnicity, of age, of across all the different spectrum, must be incredibly important for building that organisation and building STH.
Exactly. So we're large, and we need to be representative of the populations that we serve. We have huge pockets of, if we have decision making in our trust, with everybody looking the same, having the identical background, we are not going to make good decisions that will be right for the 100% of the population that we serve. Ensuring that we, at all levels, not just at our entry levels, but at all levels of the organisation, represent the population that we serve, ensures that we get that diversity of thought, the different lens and life experiences that we bring, and we genuinely make better decisions that keep our patients safer and deliver better quality of care.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mahmud. We're almost up to midday. We've got time for a last request, which came in from Sarah. She's asked if she could have St Elmo's Fire, which is a classic. When we saw that come in, both Mahmud and I were excited by that classic one. So here you go. Sarah said she wasn't sure who the artist was. It's John Parr, St Elmo's Fire. Thanks for requesting that, Sarah. Thanks for that request, Sarah. And as you said, I did Google it. John Parr is from Sheffield, a big fan of and supporter of MENCAP and the Women of Steel. So thank you for choosing that. And I think Sarah. Mahmud?
I think it just might be my wife.
Well, she said that you were very interesting, or oh no, that was Luke that said that, but Sarah
Yes,
said.
Sarah definitely wouldn't have said I'm very interesting.
Well, I found you, I'm sure she did, I found you very interesting, and I know our listeners would. Thank you for taking the time out on a Saturday morning. Thanks for everything that you do for Sheffield Teaching Hospitals and for, on behalf of our listeners, for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.